in which I have to say my knowledge of the history, the current state of play, and the prospects is very incomplete. So to say this is good or that is good, I cannot be responsible for it. I just don't know the situation well enough. But I will make some general observations based on my experience. Indeed, when I was growing up with the linguistic reorganization states, and broadly comparatively with where language and regionalism, nationalism come together anywhere in the world. And my sense is there are two things always at play. One is that as the modern nation state emerges, going to your point, it is true that not everything remains salient. Things go and things are made more central. So there is some very good work, for example, on France, a great book called How Peasants Became Frenchmen. And what it emerges is there's nothing very random. There's a very powerful effort by Paris and the French national state to pretty well make a certain kind of French absolutely standard. That doesn't happen by itself. So today if you go to Breton or here or there are people who are quite aware that they are not in this map, but that there's not much they can do about it. It's not typically violent, it is not typically separatist, but people don't forget that they are not in the new script. They are out and they have to learn something else. And you can go region by region throughout Europe and see smaller languages either get suppressed or simply disappear. This is a worldwide process. One of my teachers long ago told me, I don't know whether he was original with this insight, aphorism or not, that language is a dialect with an army. So everybody has dialects, some become languages. And language means you must have a lathi. So I invite you to examine, first of all, that as language evolves over time, there's always an element of force in that, even in the past. The languages don't just arrive from force. So the force of, let's say, English in Scotland, I've just been reading, the latest book by the guy who wrote Trainspotting. It's pretty damn hard to follow. And I see it's because it's real enough. And it is fairly distant, I'm reminded. And I'm sure over time, people of Scotland do not say, well, wonderful, we really hate our language, we really go for there's resistance, but then over time, there's accommodation. But the other stuff never fully disappears unless by some massive ethnocidal effort to just blanket out, kill speakers of this or that language. Happily, we have very few instances of that kind of linguistic violence, so it always remains. That's one side. The other side is rapid social change. So even as a non-expert in this region, whether we call it Andhra Pradesh, this state, currently as it exists, it is clear that there is a political economy along the coast which is very different from political economy here. Money is being made along the whole coastline which is not being made here. It may be moved through here. Media and media control is in Hyderabad, but which interests are involved in those? In other words, there are very high stakes. So I think it also should be remembered that the issues of, as you put it very wonderfully, who is the deer and who is the tiger and who is inside and who is out, is also going to be related to what are the stakes. Because if you remove all the stakes, let's say you create a constitutional thing tomorrow, that all resources of this region will be strictly controlled in Delhi. The energy on who is in what, who is in Hyderabad, who is in Telangana, what is the coast, etc., will deflate. The fact is there are huge resources at stake depending on how the politics of the region. So I don't reduce it to that. I don't say it's all a fiddle, there's nothing real. But I would say the real also has come in historically through differential force here and there. So the interference of Dakini, for example. I'm sure it's not just an accident. It's a question of who was there to speak up for Dakini. Especially given the fact that the nascent Indian state was very unhappy with the Nawab and displayed its unhappiness quite forcefully in 1948. You can see why they turned the volume down on lots of other things, Dakini and this and that, because this was seen as the biggest trouble area for the newly independent India. And this is a story sometimes forgotten, how brutal the Indian Union's attack on Hyderabad was at that time. So I just throw in these things, but the last comment in relation to your observation about these new kinds of, let's say, Bhojpuri, etc., which are coming in these